What's up, everyone? Y'all ready to get into this? I got the open sea shirt on today, so it is crazy sunny today out here. I don't know, maybe one day I'll do like a video of me like walking around in my yard or something, but as for now, you can see the palm trees in the back and the sun hitting. It is a beautiful day here in Thailand, so let's hop right into it. We got ChatGPT here. I got the iPad, y'all know, and we about to start cooking. I got something for us today. Let's get it right. Let's get it right. All right, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. I'll keep things relaxed and professional just as requested, and I'm here if you need anything else.
All right, sounds great. I got a topic for us today. Let's talk about Web2 versus Web3. Now, I have my own theories and assumptions, but I want to hear what you got to say first, and then I'm gonna direct the conversation that way.
Absolutely, I'm happy to dive into that. So, in a more formal nutshell, Web2 generally refers to the internet as we know it today, a landscape dominated by centralized platforms and services where users create content, but companies typically control the data. On the other hand, Web3 envisions a more decentralized internet powered by blockchain technology, where users have more control over their own data and digital assets. So that's the high-level contrast. Feel free to direct the conversation any way you like from there.
Let's get into the decentralization aspect. Go down the rabbit hole a bit more on that.
Certainly, let's delve into that. In a formal sense, decentralization in the context of Web3 essentially means distributing control and decision-making away from a central authority. So instead of a single company holding all the data and power, thanks to traditional social media platforms, you have a network of nodes or participants that share that responsibility. This can lead to increased transparency, potentially greater security, and more user sovereignty over personal data and assets. So that's a bit more down the rabbit hole, and we can go even further if you'd like.
Sure, just keep going.
Absolutely. Continuing with that professional tone, let's go a bit deeper. In a fully decentralized Web3 ecosystem, not only is data distributed, but governance can also be decentralized. That means decisions about how a platform or protocol evolves are often made collectively by the community of users or token holders rather than a central authority. This can foster a sense of collective ownership and align incentives across the ecosystem. Of course, with that comes challenges like coordination and scalability, but those are part of the ongoing evolution of the space. Let me know if you'd like to explore any particular aspect further.
There's so many directions we can go, but maybe we'll come back in another video and talk about, but right now we'll go this way. So the decision making, so like from a Web2 standpoint, there'd be one center authority, maybe like the president or the CEO, the VP, and then maybe like the top 10 people, but they have like a company of like thousands of people, and it'll be like 10 people, 15 people make this decision that will, at the end of the day, it's going to affect everyone. So, but it'll be about 10 or 15 people making this decision that affects everyone. So that's the Web2 point, or that's the Web2 that air quotes that you're referring to, right? And then we have the Web3 where we could have like the token holders vote using voting power in a DAO setting, and so now we're giving voting power to the because the CEO and the VP and these people, they can still have a certain amount of tokens, so they could still hold like 50% or 60% of the supply and still overthrow the vote. But in the Web3 like sense, you would make sure that ain't the scenario before you get into that ecosystem. But so we were going back to giving everybody voting power in the company. So now it wouldn't be just 10 or 15 people voting. It would be theoretically everybody that has a token. So whether you have one token or 100 tokens, you could still participate in the vote. And then that's when they go back to every vote matters. Well, on the blockchain it really does, because everything counts, and there's no way you can really so then if we have like 1,000 NFTs and we can see only 800 people vote, well, there's still 200 votes out there. And then that's a whole nother topic in itself, how voting power will be ratioed out as people don't vote, because I know there's a bunch of people that don't vote in presidential elections and things of that nature. And so votes in but I'm just monologuing. Can you bring that shit back full circle for everyone that's listening?
Of course, I'd be happy to tie that all together in a clear and professional way. In essence, what you're highlighting is the fundamental shift from a centralized model, where a small group of executives or leaders make decisions for an entire organization, to a more decentralized model in Web3. In that Web3 model, decision-making can be distributed across a large community of token holders, often through mechanisms like a DAO or decentralized autonomous organization. Each token holder, regardless of how many tokens they have, can have a voice, and in theory, this democratizes the decision-making process. Now, as you mentioned, there can still be scenarios where certain parties hold a significant amount of tokens and thus have greater influence, but ideally, a well-structured Web3 ecosystem works to prevent any one party from having overwhelming control. And like you said, it means that participation is open to everyone who holds tokens, making the process more transparent and inclusive. So that's how the decentralized decision-making model in Web3 contrasts with the top-down approach of Web2, and hopefully that brings everything full circle.
No, it definitely does. And with that being said, we can jump down. We can another topic describing the difference between Web 2 and Web 3. What is all right, so we got decision making, maybe even just the content creation standpoint, or even the content intake model, like how that works. I mean, either one. I mean, there's still more. Like, where do you want to go? Like, what interests you most about the Web 2 and the Web 3 comparison?
Certainly. Let me continue along that professional line. Another interesting angle we can explore is exactly what you mentioned, the difference in content creation and consumption models between Web 2 and Web 3. In a Web 2 environment, content is typically created on platforms that own the infrastructure and the distribution channels. Creators contribute their work, but the platform often controls monetization, visibility, and data. In Web 3, by contrast, the idea is that creators can retain more direct ownership of their content through things like NFTs or decentralized storage. They can also interact with their audience in a more peer-to-peer manner, potentially reducing the role of intermediaries. So from a content standpoint, Web3 aims to empower creators and give consumers a more direct relationship with the content they enjoy. That's another key contrast, and I'm happy to explore further if you'd like.
All right, so we'll talk about the content creation, and we'll do the consumption later. So as far as like the creation part, so there's a lot of pages on Instagram that should be at like 14 million, 30 million. Like, there's companies and there's brands out there that, like, the numbers are crazy. And then I think that's just Instagram controlling the numbers, unfollowing, following accounts, or making accounts. And there's a bunch of bots too. And then Instagram controls the spotlight, so if they want your account to, or if they don't want your account to, or if they want people to, so it's like, that's the Web 2 matter. Like, as far as like advertisement and stuff, like, you have to go through, those people, or the people, the platform runners, I don't know, whatever word you want to use to describe them, like, you got to go through them. And then even if your content is really great, it doesn't matter, it still gets shut down. So there's that. But like from a Web 3 standpoint, like, if your content is great and people like it and people interact with it, like, you really, I don't know, like, the platform is going to reward you for that. So it's crazy, because it's like, say on Instagram, it's like you like one of the most like popular people on the planet, but it's like Instagram was still trying to like push the profile down. But then on the Web 3, it's like, all right, you got the bet, and they want to push you because they want you out there. So it's funny how like they pick and choose what they want to go out there and what they don't want. But at the end of the day, if you have great content and it's great, and you put it on the right platform, and you get in the right community of people that support what you got going on, it doesn't matter if it's Web 2 or Web 3, on chain, off chain, or really none of that stuff doesn't matter. The content is going to speak for itself. So it's just like the Web 2 and the Web 3 aspect of the content creation is like the gatekeepers. Which gate do you want to go through, so to speak? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think you've summed it up really well. To keep it in that formal tone, the core difference is indeed about those gatekeepers and who ultimately controls visibility and reach. In a Web2 world, as you mentioned, platforms like Instagram can essentially act as arbiters of who gets seen and who doesn't, regardless of the inherent quality of the content. In Web3, the model strives to minimize that kind of centralized control. If the community values your content, the idea is that it can gain traction more organically without a single entity controlling the spotlight. Of course, as you pointed out, in the end, great content often finds a way to shine, regardless of the environment, but the Web3 promise is really about giving creators a more level playing field and a more direct path to their audience. So it's a very interesting shift in how content ecosystems can operate, and it's definitely a fascinating space to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we're about at 10 minutes or something like that. I want to bring it all back, bring this all back. Shit, man, the Web 2 and the Web 3. Hold on, let me think. How do I want to word this?
Of course, take your time. We can definitely wrap it up in a neat way whenever you're ready. The key is just summarizing those big differences and how Web 3 can change the dynamics, and then we'll have a nice conclusion. Just let me know how you'd like to phrase it.
Man, I low-key forgot what I was about to say. Damn, I was about to say something about the Web 3. Well, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. But, damn, what was I going to say? Either way, Web 3, that's like a... What do you think about the Web 2 and Web 3 and just the... it's called web because it's spider web, and it's just a spider web is just a web of big things, and it can all get caught up in the blah, 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 blah. So Web 2, Web 3 is just a big spider web of... Internet of Things and so on and so forth. That's not what I was going to say, but what do you think of that?
Well, even if that's not exactly where you were headed, it's a pretty nice analogy. In a formal sense, you could say that both Web 2 and Web 3 are indeed these interconnected networks, like a spider web, of technology, people, and data. Web 2 might be more centrally controlled, and Web 3 is kind of like a more decentralized web, where everyone can spin their own threads. So it's actually a neat metaphor. And if nothing else, it shows how all these pieces connect in a big web of interactions, so that works perfectly fine as a way to wrap it up.
All right, so I don't want you to go too far down the rabbit hole, because we're talking about Web 2 and Web 3, but conceptualize the Web 4. Can you see that?
Sure, let's keep it straightforward and professional. Conceptualizing a Web 4 is a bit speculative, but we can certainly imagine it as the next evolution beyond Web 3. If Web 3 is about decentralization and user ownership, then Web 4 could be thought of as an even more seamlessly integrated layer. Maybe one where AI, augmented reality, and decentralized networks all blend together in a way that feels even more immersive and intuitive. It's a bit like looking at the horizon of the internet and imagining how it might evolve to be even more intelligent and connected. So that's a quick conceptual take on a possible Web 4.
So, I was born into Web 2. I was really born in the web, and then, then we hit Web 2. My teenage 20, whatever, Web 2. Now, here I am building in Web 3, and then I'm preparing for Web 4. Like, I want to close this up after that. Like, what do you think, just personally, of the progression of like the whole web, and it's just the spider web getting bigger and bigger, and then after that, just close the whole topic together in a closing, summary, and then continue your day and have a good one.
Absolutely, let me wrap that up for you. It's quite fascinating to see how the web has evolved from those early days into the Web 2 era where so many of us grew up, and now into Web 3 where you're building and preparing for whatever comes next. It's like watching the web's spider web expand with each generation, becoming more intricate and interconnected. So to close it out, we've touched on how Web 2 and Web 3 differ in terms of control and decentralization, and how a possible Web 4 might further evolve. Ultimately, it's all part of this ongoing journey of the internet growing more complex and user empowerment over time. Thanks for the great chat, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thank you. So, y'all can't tell me that's not crazy. We talked about web. Went from web to Web 2, to Web 3, to Web 4. We really didn't talk about, but I mean, that's just like the base assumption. Like, I don't really think that has to be talked about. Like, we're talking about it without talking about it. So, Yeah, that's that. There's a few things I wanted to touch on too, but I'm gonna come back and we're gonna make another video, and we're gonna keep comparing Web 2 and Web 3, and we're gonna have to talk about Web 4 here soon, because we gotta be prepared for that as well. Like, we need to stay 3 seconds ahead, like live action, and then we need to stay like fucking 4 or 5 years ahead, like thought process, like mentally. So, with that being said, y'all have a good day.